Hello today and welcome back to another video. Today have this Blazer, and I've had it a while. Never really used the air conditioning, but I decided this year I wanted to get the air fixed and use it more during the summer, and it had a few problems, but it come down to the final. It was not working. There was an electronic glitch, and this video covers on what the problem is and which sort of the hint of what the main problem and how to change the heater control. And it also has the automatic climate control in it. Some do and some don't, so stay tuned for the diagnosis to lead up to changing the heater control and the actual changing of the heater control. Alrighty, if you're having a problem with your air conditioning in your Blazer and you're hitting the AC button and it's blinking like this, you stopped by to watch the right video. Yes, I have this Blazer a couple years and the air conditioning never worked, but I decided I wanted to get it working this year. I usually transfer plates on another car. If you notice, it does have a brand new AC compressor on it. The one on it I did have an extra problem, leaked Freon, but that's taken care of now. But there's also an electrical problem, which I sort of thought maybe in the process of changing the compressor would fix it, but it didn't. And here I'm going to take and start it up with the wire jumper at the low pressure switch, which should let the compressor run, and you can see it's not. Yeah, actually, I took before, of course, like I said, I worked on it, learned the compressor was leaking, and I knew this was a problem. And now we're going to unhook the low pressure switch, plug it back in, and again I found this just by accident messing around. Open our relay panel up under the hood, and we're going to take and remove the AC compressor relay, which is right there. It's marked on the little map underneath the cover, and here is the true physical location of the relay, and we're going to take and pull that up out, and we're going to take and experiment around here some with the test light. Okay, I want to take here, ground our light good here, the bolt at the master cylinder, and undoubtedly that this relay, and I know there's no blowed fuse, there should be juice, and I'm just checking if the light I have connection there is just one of the fuse links, and too fine to put the pin of the test light down in the hole, so I had to use a little wire. Now I'm going to take a jumper here across. Right there's the one place, right by the 15, that's the hot side, and jumper to that. When I was going on the little picture on the relay panel, and now we're going to start the Blazer back up. And if you watch here, no more than starting it, there is the compressor on. Well, actually, as soon as I turned the key on, it kicked back in, and the compressor runs just like it should with the relay jumped with the wire. And there you can see it's getting good and cold down to 54 degrees, and it's around 80 degrees outside today. So let's remove our jumper wire. One other thing you could try, it is a possibility, maybe in your case it's the relay, and for useless information, the horn relay and those other two relays in this are the same relay, which I've already tried. And more or less after this, I come up with the conclusion it cannot be anything but the heater control. So from this point on in the video, we're going to focus on changing the heater control. And I'm going to start with removing the diagnostic link connector, remove the two 7mm head self-tapping screws, and get that loosened up because that's fastened to the bottom hush panel under the dash. Now it's time to take and remove the other screws here that hold this on. There's one right there, sort of right in the middle underneath the steering column. Take that one out. And there's another one over towards the right side of the steering column. I'm going to take and remove that. I like this little thumb wheel thing I'm using to turn them out. And then there's one straight ahead towards the firewall up by the accelerator pedal. And one thing on this job, you get to spend a lot of time sort of bent down underneath the dash doing this, but it's, like I say, keeps you limbered up. And then there's one over above the emergency brake. Now in my case, my emergency brake is good shape and it does work. If you push the pedal down, it'll give you enough room. You can't use an extension or nothing to access the bolt head to turn this one out. And then once this one's out, its bottom hush panel is all about ready to come out, except for one or so things have to watch. One, the light underneath the dash has to get fished back through. Like I say, take and fish that through, and then our diagnostic link connector gets to push back through. And there's a wire here to unhook for the wireless remote entry antenna. Unplug that, and now out it comes. And there it is, the hush panel out from underneath the steering column. Now we're going to have to unhook the emergency brake release cable. Just pull back on the metal, and it just slips right up out. And then it takes and it slips out of this rubber grommet, out of that U-shaped bracket. Okay, that's out. Now we're going to get out from underneath the dash somewhat, and we're going to take and remove this panel right here underneath the steering column. And start by moving the bolt here. I chose two on the left side of the column. And again, 7mm head self-tapping screw. Then there's another one on the right side of the column. Take and turn that out. Like I say, at least you're not bending down and rounding so far on taking this out. Well, that is for momentarily. Now there is one down farther, and we got to turn that one out. It's, like I say, sort of up above the emergency brake cable. And another one on the right side. That one, because of the console, which don't have to come out. I have that tape deck and that console right there. If you use just this little thumb wheel minus the extension, it fits. And then have to take and remove this center one screw because it holds to this piece that we need to take off. Now it itself don't have to come out, but it attaches to this right here, what we're pulling out right at the moment. To remove this, just sort of pull straight back. There's little metal clips that hold it in, but just be gentle but firm with it. And then get our emergency brake cable, which wants to catch in the wiring harness, but I gotta just fish it around till it comes up through. And there it is, and there's that out, along with the emergency brake cable, the release handle. Now we're going to take and pry carefully back on the 4-wheel drive switch, slide it straight out, and take and release the wire connector, push in, pull out on the plug. And this one, you like pry out on the little black tab and pull up on the white connector, and there's the 4-wheel drive connector out. And just as with the 4-wheel drive switch, carefully pry out on the rear wiper switch, combination hatch release, and that only has one plug in. Push in on it and pull straight out. Now tilt our column up out of our way, and we're going to remove another one of these 7mm head self-tapping screws. Yeah, what we're in the process of doing now is taking the plastic off over the speedometer and the gauges. Then there on the right side, there's only 3 in total that holds this, but on the right side, take this one out. And right in the middle, sticking straight up towards the roof of the vehicle, is one more of them. And you can see there, the tachometer you can just barely see. And now tilt our column back down out of the way. And after we tilt our column down, we want to start carefully prying back. There's little metal clips. Again, it comes just easy does it so you don't crack the plastic. And now I'm going to be sure you have the wheels blocked and emergency brake on, and pull it the whole way down and low for clearance for this to pull out. And before it comes out now, there's one more step. We got to unhook the headlight switch. And there is 2 wire plug-ins on the headlight switch. You have enough room to get it pulled out enough. The one you push in on it, push back. And the other one's the deal you pry down like we did with the 4-wheel drive switch and pull out on that one. And that is unplugged, and now it'll just conveniently lift right up over the column and out of the vehicle. And there's the whole piece of plastic out. Okay, now we're down to our heater control itself, and as you see, this is the automatic control. And on this being the problem with the air conditioning, if you have the manual controls, I don't know if it's so much of a possibility, but like I say, this one is the automatic, and there's just 2 screws that hold this in. And after you remove those, take these little metal tabs and push up on them and down, and same with the other side, and then it just slides out, and there is simply one wire connector. Push down to release it, and this did fight a little bit, but finally it's unplugged, and there is our heater control. So now that it's out and we're ready to put the other one back in, which it'll plug it right in. Again, it's only one plug-in. With the manual controls, you got electric plug-ins and vacuum lines, and just slide it back into 4 holes with those metal clips, and put our 2 7mm head self-tapping screws back in to hold it. Yeah, probably the biggest problem on this job of changing this heater control and wait and see the results is just the fact of finding the heater control. I found a used one off of eBay, but they're no longer being produced, so that could be your biggest problem you may run into if you do need this heater control. And I also like to let a link to any parts that I used in the description, but again, this was a one only thing available, so can't really let a link when there's no more for sale. Okay, now it's time to put our large piece of plastic around our heater control, radio, and instrument cluster. And first thing is plug the headlight switch back in. There's our white connector back in and the black one. And now we can just take and carefully get it in position. Before it goes back in the whole way, be sure you get the wires routed out for the rear wiper switch and the four-wheel drive switch. Don't want to shove it back in place and have them stuck behind it and have to pull it back out. And now we can make sure the holes are lined up with these tabs. And like I say, check the other side. And once you're sure they're in, just sort of push them in. You don't have to go crazy. If you got to really take like your fist and beat on them, they're probably not lined up. Look before you break it, and you can see when it's in, it fits nice and snug against the dash pad. And just look down here around the left side of it. And now we can put our wiper switch back in, which simply just plug it back in, and it just slides right into place and snaps right in. And the four-wheel drive switch followed up by the wiper switch, and this, like I say, has the extra plug in. There's that one back in, and the blue connector, and take and line it right up. And you see there's like little plastic tabs and a groove in the dash where that lines up, and then just push that into place till it snaps in. Okay, now we're down to putting our 3 screws that hold this into place around it there. There's the one on the right side of the column. Yeah, this heater control isn't really hard to change, but typical working around stuff at just the dash, just be careful of the plastic not to break. And now we're installing the one right in the middle that sticks straight up. Yeah, in theory, with the clips that hold this, the 3 screws probably aren't a super necessity, but I like putting everything back how it was. And then we're going to install the one on the right side and tighten it up. Okay, we're nearing completion on this. There's only a few more things to reinstall and we'll all be done. First, this piece that goes on down underneath the steering column, the knee protector in an accident. And this is just like the piece around the gauges. Line it up with the holes in the dash made where it slides in. And when we're putting this in, you're going to want to take and be sure to get your emergency brake cable slid in through that hole in the metal bracket of the dash. Now, most likely when you're doing it, it is going to get caught up in the wiring harness, the emergency brake release cable, but it needs to be hooked up underneath the dash anyhow. So as long as you can get it, but you can get this snapped back in like I'm doing now, you can take and fix that once you're underneath. You can see the emergency brake lever is sticking out. Alrighty, now let's get back under the dash and let's get the release cable free of the wiring harness. And once you get it free, just pull back on that little hinge lever and slide it back in. And there it is, it's operational, and you pull the lever back, and that's taken care of. And now we'll reinstall our screws in this knee protector panel, and same deal as before. It probably isn't necessary with all the clips and that, but put them back in, keep it all complete. And once this is in, we're only down to the hush panel down under the dash, and then it'll be the moment of truth. And to start with on this hush panel, don't forget to plug the wire in for the keyless remote entry device that's on this Blazer. And that's just a simple, the one wire plug-in, as we unplugged it there. And then our diagnostic link connector put back through the hole in the hush panel before putting it up in place. Okay, now we can put it back up in place, and it's not a real big thing, just sort of that groove right in the middle. Get around the brake pedal rod and get one screw ready, and I'm just going to put it right in the one middle hole to hold it until you get the rest of them in. I'm actually going to tighten this one in the middle up real good, and then it's definitely not going to go anyplace till the rest of the bolts are in that hold the hush panel in place. It makes no real difference which order you probably put them in, except for the one in the middle seems logical to get it in place, but after this one's tightened up, I'm going to go put the one on then on the right side of the hush panel and get it. And I'm going to have to take and wiggle it around to get it to line up with that little metal speed nut that's up in the dash that self-tapping screw threads into, and there that one's in place. And then we're going to go over and get the one on the left side, right up above the emergency brake pedal. And same deal, you have to look there and find the speeding up, but not a big problem. And then tighten this one in. And as I mentioned before, this little thumb ratcheting tool is convenient for this interior work, in my opinion. Yeah, I'll be sure and include a link. I bought it at Harbor Freight, but include a link in the description to the item number for that little ratcheting thumb. Well, it's actually a 3-piece set. You get a 1/4 inch drive, 3/8 and a 1/2 inch. Although I've never used the half. It's a 1/2. I don't know really much what you're going to do with it. And then we're going to install this one straight in towards the firewall, and then put the one in that really wasn't part of the hush panel, but that center panel down under the dash. But since the knee protector pad was fastened to, had to remove that one self-tapping screw out of it. Okay, we're all about there. The last thing is the diagnostic link connector. That's just as easy. I found here to take and hold it with one hand and start your screw in with the socket, and then just start it in the little speed nuts and start tightening it up. And once you get the one started, it'll stay in place until it's tightened up and the other screws put in on it. And here goes the other screw in. Okay, and we'll get this tightened up, and we'll soon get to start this up and see what happens. And like I say, this video you picked up on air conditioning problems and how to change a heater control. But let's see if it was successful. There's the AC light staying on as it should with the vehicle running. And there's the AC compressor running all on its own without no jumper wire in place. You can see the cover and all's back on the relay panel, and the relay is in as it should be. And a good test here, and it's only run not even a minute. The AC accumulator is already getting wet. It's starting to sweat there. And again, it's about an 80-some degree day, and there the thermometer is reading 44 degrees. And there again, right here, I'm going to show you the temperature outside while I'm doing this. Once I get it, it's 80 degrees. And this is in the shade sitting this afternoon.